Speech of the Mayor.
Lost two chair, have you, Councillor Jones? Noswaith a pawb, croeso. Good afternoon and welcome to this full council meeting on Wednesday the 7th of March. Please note that this meeting will be recorded for subsequent broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. The public seating areas will be in view of the camera, and by entering the chamber and using the public seating area, members of the public are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings as outlined above. Yes.
I'd just like to say that the standing orders of the Constitution and its authority, paragraph 401.08, states, and I'll quote it at length, is that the proper notice is for 3 clear working days before a meeting. The officer shall be I'm sorry, my eyes aren't too good. 3 days before the meeting. Now, by my reckoning, that was 5:30 on Friday. So, on the reports pack, running to just over 300 pages, was available to members on Monday, and even then, they were required to pick them up in Democratic Services. At lunchtime yesterday, there were still 6 packs to be collected. And the very latest, as I say, should have been delivered and by hand or by post or other means to members' houses or place of residence. Now, I appreciate it could be argued that other appropriate means could extend to electronic mail, but I think there are 2 points. Electronic mail is not spelled out in the Constitution, and I also think that a document of such importance as going to over 300 pages is hardly appropriate to any iPad screen. To expect members to give proper consideration to such an important matter tonight as setting the budget is, in my opinion, a little bit too much to ask. I therefore call on the leader to move that the suspension of standing orders in order that the meeting may take place. If he does not, then I'm prepared to move a vote to suspend standing orders. But I should say so that if it is moved, I will be voting against it, because I do not believe that standing orders should be suspended, because we should stick to the Constitution for the purposes they were designed, and that's to give us adequate time to discuss the matters. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I can assist with that. The requirement is that the agenda should be published and should be available to members, either delivered to them by post or by other appropriate means. In fact, what happened was that the agenda and reports were published at 8:27 a.m. on Thursday the 1st of March, so well in advance of the requirement. Members were notified by email sent from Democratic Services on the 1st of March that because of the weather conditions they wouldn't be able to receive papers in the post, and therefore referring them to the fact that the documents were all available both on the website and on their iPads. And then a further reminder was sent on the 5th of March to explain that to them. As I understand it, the majority of members were able to access documents in that way. I've not had any other complaints from anybody to say that they weren't able to access the documents in that way. And in my view, legally, we can construe delivery of the documents as being done electronically. So that would be the advice that I would give to council, is that you have received the documents perfectly in accordance with the Constitution.
Carys, do you really think that we could go through a 300-page report, cross-referencing point to point, where I go through, I make a point at this page, look back to page 70, go forward to page 136 on an iPad? Now, I'm sorry, but I don't think, as I said earlier on, that is an appropriate alternative to a delivery of the papers to my house. I certainly haven't been able to give the consideration to this document that I feel I should. So that is why I have suggested that if we are to proceed, we should suspend standing orders.
Well, Councillor Amos, if you don't feel that you've considered the papers adequately, I'm not sure how suspending standing orders is going to help. I do. The answer to your question very simply is yes. I do think that your iPad is an appropriate way to view these papers. You've been given training which enables you to cross-reference, to make notes, to refer back through notes that you've made. In fact, the iPad does that for you very efficiently, and I know that lots of members do. Clearly, it's a matter for council whether they feel they've had the opportunity to consider the papers properly. I'm not clear as to how you think suspending standing orders would actually assist with that.
If we suspend standing orders, the meeting may proceed. In my opinion, if standing orders are not suspended, the meeting cannot take place because the Constitution has not been adhered to.
I've given my advice about that, and I'm clear that it has.
Mr. Mayor, just to add some further information to Carys, the requirement in law is that we publish the papers 3 clear days, and they're available in the council offices. They were available in the council offices 3 clear days before. Obviously, the council constitution considers how we should deliver those to elected representatives. We have adopted as a council the use of the iPad and the electronic means primarily to reduce cost to this authority. We've got a document here which is 341 pages. The cost of producing that, obviously, which we currently do still, is fairly substantial. The guidance of certainly Welsh Government is that we should move to electronic documentation, which we're endeavouring to do. We aren't the first authority in Wales to adopt there's some authorities don't produce any paper documents nowadays. They're all done electronically. We've expended a significant amount of money on brand new iPads for elected representatives, and I just concur with Carys. We've complied with the law. There's no requirement to suspend standard orders. And we deal with it on that basis.
Leader.
I've listened to Councillor Amos. I've listened to legal advice. I've listened to the Chief Executive. It is of my opinion that they have complied with standard orders and the Constitution, and this meeting should proceed.
Okay, that's the first item on the agenda for this evening. Apologies for absence. Do we have any?
Yes, the apologies that you have, Mr Mayor, are from Councillors Ernie Goldsworthy, Cheryl Jago and Paul Brown.
Thank you. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992 relating to Council Tax, the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Members' Code of Conduct. Do we have any declarations? Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With reference to item 5, Council Tax Resolution 2018-19, I'd like to declare an interest. I'm a member of Bedlinog Community Council, who have a precept, and but I also have dispensation to speak and vote.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Any other declarations? No? So the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the previous meetings. They can be found 3A through to 3N, and I understand the leader is taking this one.
I second those, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments? No? And we put that to the vote then, please. Thank you, everyone. That motion's been carried. Next item on the agenda, item number 4, budget requirement and council tax debate. Council tax 2018-19, state of the council debate. To consider the report of the chief executive, which can be found on pages 63 through to 166. And I understand the leader's taking this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Local Government Finance Act 1992 determines that we as an authority deliver our budget requirement and council tax setting to Welsh Government by the 11th of March 2018. On 20th December 2017, our final local government settlement was minus 0.36%. Our settlement history of the past 5 years can be seen on page 88. For financial year 2018-19, we have a budget requirement of 117,461,000. That can be seen on page 76. A suggested council tax increase of 4.15% and utilisation of budget reserves of £69,000 will produce a balanced budget. We have a cumulative deficit of just over 6.5 million for 2019-20 and 13,729,000 over a 4-year period, 2021 to 22. Our proposed capital programme of the same year, 4-year period, totals just over 37 million, with 10,922,000 next year. This year's budget requirement and council tax report is the accumulation of 12 months of hard work by officers, members and the public through a substantial consultation process. Budget boards, all scrutiny committees, not least audit and joint committees, all members at full council considering and approving the medium-term financial plan in all its various stages of surplus and deficit have all contributed where we find ourselves tonight. I will now review and summarise some of the key achievements from this local authority and officers since our election last May. A full copy of this information will be provided in the members' lounge later on. Despite the financial constraints and continued demands made on the authority by the public, we continue to provide vital services and have protected those in greatest need. All our departments do the very best they can under very difficult circumstances, and in many cases are the envy of our colleagues across Wales. Education. After being placed in special measures, our performance has begun to plateau, albeit the general trajectory is still in a positive direction. It is important to note that when compared to schools across Wales with similar school-free school meal numbers, the attainment of Merthyr Tydfil pupils is more positive. We have benefited from opposition and cabinet portfolio leads working closely together, and both councillors Harvey Jones and Lisa Mitten are to be congratulated on how they've performed and seamlessly supported the new education lead officer, Sue Walker, over the last months. We continue to prioritise education so that we can meet our ambition of being amongst the top performing local authorities in Wales. By investing in our young people and ensuring they have the best start in life, we are investing in the future of Merthyr Tydfil. This is reflected in the substantial decrease we have witnessed across Merthyr Tydfil of young people not being in education, employment or training after leaving school. Merthyr Tydfil has continually been one of the highest performing authorities across Wales. Social services. The Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act 2014 was implemented in April 2016 for children and young people in Merthyr Tydfil under the duties of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. We are enormously proud of our young people, our looked after young people, some of whom have achieved local, national and international recognition for their outstanding achievements. We continue to be committed to support people to live fulfilled lives in their own homes and communities, and have worked in partnership with Tydfil University Health Board and neighbouring authorities to this end. Our performance overall has been deemed as good for adult social services. The Tackling Poverty Agenda continues to be a focus across the county borough and is led through a strategic group of not only the council but its partners in health and the third sector. However, we are clear that early intervention and prevention in partnership with our communities provides the best possible solution to a range of the challenges we face as a local authority. Neighbourhood services. Significant improvements have been made in waste management in relation to achieving the Welsh Government recovery and landfill diversion targets. In 2016-17, Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council exceeded the Welsh Government recovery target of 58% by attaining 65.9%. This was a 3.5 increase on the previous year's recovery rate. Good progress has continued in 2017-18 with a recovery rate of 64.87% achieved for the first 2 quarters, keeping us on target to achieve 64% by the end of this year. Parks and bereavement. We recognise the value of county borough parks, playgrounds and open spaces, and the associated health benefits, social integration, opportunities for recreation and exercise and general well-being that they provide. Good parks boost the tourist economy, and we will continue our partnership with the Merthyr Leisure Trust to ensure that Cyfarthfa Park continues to play an important strategic destination for this town. We will endeavour to retain the green flag status for Tydfil Park and Aberfan Cemetery, and to continue this trend by seeking to achieve green flag status for other sites in the future, such as Thomastown and Treharris Parks. Street cleansing. Fly tipping is a blight on our community, and the council remains committed to tackling this environmental crime within the county borough. Last year, Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council was the top performing authority in Wales for clearing fly-tipped waste on council land, with 100% of all fly-tipping incidents cleaned within 5 working days. However, we recognise the deal with fly-tipping effectively, prevention and enforcement are the key. The work of our enforcement team will ensure that all fly-tipped waste is investigated and perpetrators will be prosecuted. To date, there have been 10 prosecutions for fly-tipping and duty of care offences, with fines totalling over £6,000. We are confident, with the introduction of fixed penalty notice of £400, that there is a possible future solution for the issue of domestic fly-tipping, and this problem will be considerably reduced, resulting in further offenders being taken to justice. Regeneration. From an economic development perspective, a range of programmes have successfully been delivered across this country borough. Following on the success of the 2013 Tourism Plan, the Economic Development Team have developed the 2016 to 18 Destination Management Plan. The Destination Management Plan and Complementary Action Plan sets out priorities for delivery and will provide a blueprint for the next 3 years. The Economic Development Team is also leading on key strategic projects such as the bus station development, the bus station due to relocate in its new site at the southern end of town, the Townscape Heritage Lottery funded, approved £1.2 million towards continuing the conservation and restoration of buildings in the Portmorlis Heritage Quarter. The Town Centre Master Plan. The Town Centre, over a period of 10 years, has seen significant EU funding to regenerate the area. The new phase will now incorporate the Town Centre and the current Hoover site. Taff Bargoed redevelopment. The Taff Bargoed area, over a period of 10 years, has seen significant amount of EU funding to regenerate the area. The next phase will now look at developing the strategy and action plan and take into consideration Taff Bargoed Park and the investment taking place at Rock UK. Cyfarthfa Castle, Cyfarthfa Park and Cyfarthfa Heritage Area. In October last year, a design day, or charrette as it was called, was facilitated by the Council in partnership with the Design Commission of Wales, the School of Architecture at Cardiff University. That one day, more than 80 people drawn from very different disciplines attended Wales to look at the vision of Merthyr Tydfil and how to explore making better use of Cyfarthfa Park. We want to make the estate a visitor attraction and transform it into an image and an economy of the town, an anchor project in the development of tourism in the South Wales valleys. At the end of September this year, a £5 million application for the first phase of development of Cyfarthfa Castle will be submitted to the Heritage Lottery Fund. The application approved was to develop the former school side of the castle, creating a learning zone, collection store and enterprise centre. At the end of this year, a second Parks for People application will be submitted for £1 million. The focus for this development is to focus on community outputs, the benefits through volunteering and learning opportunities. It also includes some additional infrastructure improvement at the Canalvan. Other initiatives include Rock UK. On the 24th of February, the Summit opened its cafe as a part of its £4 million development that will offer 100-bed suite, residential accommodation, meeting and function rooms, outdoor play area, gym and fitness centre. Trago Mills. It is year. Trago Mills will open its doors on the 21st of April this year, supporting the development of the Economic Growth Partnership. Local employment opportunities for over 400 jobs available, and already senior posts have been occupied by local residents. A key development within the Trago site is the establishment of a tourist information centre. This will act as a local regional information hub, ensuring visitors who visit the area from outside explore destination Merthyr Tydfil and its surrounding areas. This will boost the visitor economy and even generate repeat visits to our area, become an economic driver not only for Merthyr Tydfil, but the South East region as a collective. Public protection and housing. May 2017 marked the end of Council's very successful renewal area programme, which saw 3 wards benefit from over £23 million of direct grant investment from Welsh Government since 2001, which in turn stimulated a further £70 million of additional investment through the Council, private sector and our partners. During the 16-year life of this programme, more than 1,000 homes have benefited from repair, improvement works, and more than 250 neighbourhood improvement schemes have been completed. The housing solution teams have developed a new common housing allocation policy, which will make process of applying for social housing in the county borough simpler and readily understandable. Our Trading Standards Service continues to ensure legitimate business is supported, protected from illegal trading. The service has been successful in tackling unfair competition to legitimate trade and doorstep crime. Proceeds of crime investigations continue to be an important tool from the service, taking back money from criminals that they've made from crime. Licensing is working with partners to make the nighttime economy in Merthyr Tydfil a much more safe and vibrant place. The authority is committed to participate in the Welsh Government National Training Framework for Violence Against Women. Training of staff and senior leaders continue to be provided, raising awareness for those within our communities that have been suffering from domestic abuse or sexual violence. The Environmental Health Service. The Environmental Health Service continues to promote the health and well-being of our residents through a wide range of activities. This section has produced an action plan to improve the air quality on Tynwald Hill, and the plan will be put out for public consultation in March for 12 weeks. The Food Hygiene Rating Scheme is an excellent example of collaboration, and its continued success gives consumers important information that they can choose where they want to eat. Sport and physical activity. While Merthyr Tydfil has a poor reputation for healthy, active lifestyles, the evidence shows that Merthyr Tydfil remains above the Welsh average for the junior combined gender hooked on sport measure, adult male participation rates, junior female participation. In addition to these, the Council has been successful in gaining the Disability Sport Wales Silver Award for being an inclusive local authority, and is progressing on its target of being an in-sport gold authority by 2020. Moving forward, this Council is in the process of attempting to deliver more school sport activity and to set up inter-school competitions and leagues as they were in previous years. Our legal departments have continued to provide support and representation to all departments and members during increasingly difficult times where changes in service and delivery can be the subject of legal scrutiny and challenge. Democratic Service have successfully managed local elections and the support and induction of a large number of new elected councillors. They have also provided training and support in a number of areas and helped councillors to adapt to changes in technology. From a new and inexperienced leading group, the assistance from Anne Taylor and her team has been essential for us to function, and I would like to thank them personally for their support. We are proud of Merthyr Tydfil and proud of our people. We have a loyal, determined and committed workforce. Whilst we are one of the smallest authorities, the expectations upon us are just the same. Of all 22 local authorities, we have the lowest level of sickness absence. In September 2017, we launched the Managers Academy in partnership with Alicia Training and have 35 delegates acquiring new leadership, coaching and mentoring skills. We have reviewed our approach to the management of our staff. Our management structures look to introduce more business-like delivery of services in line with budget constraints and business change recommendations. We'll achieve this by maintaining our strong, harmonious working relationships with trade unions to retain and develop staff. Moving forward, we are keen to do more around succession planning, apprenticeship schemes, employee rewards, benefits and employee engagement. Our commitment to undertake more partnership working with trade unions was recognised within the development of a joint facilities agreement with the branch secretaries and regional officers of our recognised trade unions. It is our people who make Merthyr Tydfil and Merthyr Council special, and I would like to thank them all staff for their valued contribution. The partnership, performance, business change, risk and equality teams are working closely to deliver corporate change and well-being of the future generations planned across Cwm Taf. We are continually and actively promoting the Welsh language. A competition has been held across our schools in Merthyr Tydfil for the Loga Siawair event, and safe and encouraging environment where Welsh can be spoken at all levels. The winners were announced on St David's Day. It is now general practice to open all meetings in Welsh, and the use of Welsh language in all forms is encouraged by senior managers and councillors alike. It would be remiss at this stage not to mention the outstanding performance across the whole of the authority in dealing with the recent extreme weather conditions. It identified Team Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council operating at its most effective and efficient manner. This was complemented by a communication strategy and operating procedure led by Kerry Dinn and her team that clearly informed the public of key and vital information, but also marketed the success achieved by all those involved in dealing with the crisis. Mr Mayor, in conclusion, I would like to thank all members, officers and staff of the authority for their continued support, particularly in such difficult times of decreasing finance, and for delivering the high-performance services for the citizens of Merthyr Tydfil County Borough. I now have the pleasure in moving recommendations 2.1 to 2.8 on page 64 of this report.
Wrong one. Second. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Jones.
I've got more than one, Mr Mayor. Can I take you to page 97? 6.12.2, and it refers to the savings that has to be made by the schools. And in the report, these savings, the figures repeated for a few years hence. And underneath that, under 6.3.1, refers to an indicative additional demands of £1 million per annum, included for years 1920 and 21-22. I've made inquiries as to how the split was made up for this 471,000 from the schools forum, which met, I understand, fairly recently. And out of that current 408,000, because it's come down from the 471,000 because of they can't implement the reduction in schools' breakfast clubs until September. But what is left in that figure is split by reducing from the 24 primary schools, and also the same for Greenfield schools, 9,300, which is used in an amount of money to address underachievement. It was referred to as basic skills at one time. Together with the fact that there is a reduction of just under $250,000 in the education improvement grant. How does all that square up with page 99 under the heading 6.7.3, table 12, council services prioritisation following public consultation, and there were just under 1,000 responses in respect of schools and education. How does that tie up with those figures and improving education, bearing in mind we've just been told by the leader that at the moment the good work that's been done seems to have reached a plateau?
Hi, thanks Clive for that. No, in relation to the consultation, in relation to the table that's presented on that page, you're quite right. That is the feedback from the public, and as your Cabinet Member from Education, I am more than passionate about the services that our children receive, the education standards that they receive in school, and the work of our heads and our teaching staff and our LSAs as well. In relation to the school's budget, can I just correct you? They didn't just meet recently, they've met on numerous occasions over the last couple of months, of which I've been present and sat in those schools' budget forums as well. That saving needed to be made, but we went to the schools to ask them where that should come from. And in relation to the underachievement grant, what I need to reiterate there, and this was also discussed in previous scrutinies as well over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, is that within schools they had basic skills additional funding. Now, we had basic skills managers in those schools, and the results show, which the leader has also made reference to, that that is now embedded. Okay, so what we're saying to the schools is, and what the schools came back and said to us was, yeah, that's there, we had those grants, but that's now embedded. We're now able to deliver those services within those schools. So there seems to be some contradiction in relation to sort of, you know, where you're coming from with regards to underachievement. I just wanted to reiterate that point. And also in regards to that point as well, you know, I'm passionate about it because I have 2 children in the school system. So, you know, there's no beating around the bush. It's difficult. There's some unpalatable decisions. And you're quite right. I think you made reference to the EIG grant as well. You know, not forgetting that we're looking at an 11.4% reduction to this authority in the EIG grant, not from Westminster mind, from Cardiff. And also, we've just had a reduction in the MIA grant as well. £135,000 as councils now got to find to, one, support and retain 5 fantastic members of staff, but also to support some of the most vulnerable people in our community. And that didn't come from Westminster either. That also came from Cardiff. So yeah, unpalatable decisions, you know, tough decisions to make, but this came from the schools forum. And as I said, they hadn't met recently. They've met, deliberated, consulted on this over the last couple of months.
Thank you for the answer. When I said recently, they've already made a decision as to the split of this very recently. Can I ask another question in relation to page 119? And it's halfway down the page. It's under the heading Corporate Authority. You look roughly halfway down. It refers to bank charges of 71,000, and that figure is repeated for the next 3-4 years. I took the trouble to send an email to Steve Jones, giving him notice of this question, and I had a prompt answer to that, given the split of how these charges apply. For example, 30,000 of it is in respect of the usage of post offices to pay the bills of the council, etc. Another amount in there relates to Barclays Bank, so quite a sum. My question in relation to that is, do we negotiate with these various banks and organisations to reduce that figure? Because once I see bank charges anywhere, I ask the question, why are we paying them? Barclays Bank is one of them, which I presume we have a substantial amount of business with them. My question is, why are we paying so much?
If I could respond to that question, then, it is the case that it's once every 4 years we do have to retender for the bank tender, and as part of that is obviously the best price for the authority. It's what we basically get as an actual service from the bank, and we do actually ensure that we do get value for money as part of that service. So that is all considered when we have a look at the bank tender every single year. And so every single thing that you see here is something that just has been value for money.
has that tender been agreed very recently, if you say it's for 4 years? That tender been agreed recently, if you say it's for 4 years, because the figures are there for 4 years.
The £71,000 is it's just an annual cost, and just in respect of the actual bank tender itself, that was actually renewed. It went out to tender a couple of years ago, and that has come to council at that stage as well, so that had been approved.
My next question is on page 136, and just seek clarification for this. It's the bottom of the page there. It said it proposals requiring business cases. I quote, it relates to proposals considered under the exempt report to council of the 7th of March 2018, under in brackets council the 7th of March 2018. And there's a minus figure there for the next financial year of minus 93,000, next year minus 144,000, year after that 159,000. I'm not aware that there's an exempt report before us, Mr. Mayor.
If I could respond to that one again. Yes, it was the actual intention that there just would have been a report coming to this council, but that report will now be coming to a council in probably April or May. And that is, if you recall, that was also then, it was in respect of these actual reports came to a council in February, and they were actually deferred at that stage. So these will be coming back at just a later stage.
So the date we got there is an error. My other question, because this one jumped up to me because it happened to be in my ward, is on page 146, and it's one of 34 new capital scheme proposals. I don't know whether 34 is an indication of their priority, or it's just for information for us. But number 30 reads Cavartha Lake Dam Wall. The lake walls have suffered damage from a crayfish infestation, with the joints between the stomach becoming permeable. As a consequence, water leakage, approximately 50,000 gallons per day from the lake, is causing subsidence to the pedestrian pathway and surrounding grass areas. Failure of the dam wall would result in serious flooding to Brecon Road, Pandy Close, and the nearby industrial estate, which has already experienced minor cases of flooding. Could I ask, where is that in the priority order? There must be a priority of these 34. And has anybody any idea roughly what the cost of that would entail?
Again, if you could go to page 138 of the pack. And if you look at page 138, and it's under the last section there, which is entitled Land Buildings, and you'll be able to see underneath there, the 4th item down is the Cavartha Lake Dam Walls, and it's evident there that for next year, for 18-19, there is a budget in place of £320,000.
So I missed that. That, I presume, is hopefully will be done during the next financial year then?
Yes, it will be, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listening to the leader, Councillor Neil's statement, which is duly noted, I'm always been a firm believer, and this is part of my question, only one question it is, I'm always a firm believer that our strength is our staff. And the question I'd like to ask to the independent group is that does this now secure us for the next 12 months on frontline services, this budget you've set? And does it mean that there'll be no redundancies of any staff to the next budget, which is a 12 months' time? That's my question. And it's a direct question, and I'd like a direct answer on the 2 points. One is our frontline services, and the other point is then there's no redundancies from this local authority till the next budget is looked at in 12 months' time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, it's our aim, and has always been our aim, to protect frontline services. That was the budget setting is about. We are confident we can work together with unions to avoid redundancies. I can't give a category answer that I can't not write that out, rule that out. I would be a liar to do that, and I'm not going to do that in this position. We are in a time of change, we're in a time of restricted budgets, and that's the reality of it. But we will do everything in our power within the framework of budget management, of change management, and working very close with the unions, as we have for the last 12 months, and done so for the last 12 months, I hasten to add, against all other areas. Retain jobs, deliver service, but I can't rule out the fact that there could and might be redundancies.
Any other questions? Councillor Chaplin.
I go back to page 97 on the Schools Forum savings. In December 13's full council, it was said that the Schools Forum would identify savings and these would be presented back to full council. When are these going to be presented back to full council? That's my first question.
Mr Mayor, sorry, can you just clarify that? December 13?
In the December full council, if you check the minutes, 13th, yeah, if you check the minutes, yeah, it was agreed that the Schools Forum savings would be identified by the Schools Forum and be brought back to council for consideration. So when is that going to happen?
Well, the Schools Forum savings have been identified. They're in the body of this report as well, i.e. the Breakfast Club, and what Councillor Jones was referring to earlier was the Underachievement Grant. They were the savings that were brought forward by the Schools Budget Forum in relation to the 471, which is now reduced to 408.
I still don't get that. So what are the savings? So where are they identified in the report? Where? What are the savings?
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is the savings are the reduction in the hours for the Breakfast Club, and where the basic skills management funding, call it underachievement if you want to, has now been sustained, has now been delivered, is now in-house, is embedded. They were the identified savings, resulting in £408,000.
My next question, when I was at the school governors meeting, I was told that Schools Forum were also, for the following financial year, asked to look at £1 million worth of savings. Is that correct?
They were asked, but I haven't agreed to anything in relation to £1 million savings for next year.
So they were asked that question?
They weren't asked that question as far as you have to make these savings. We were just looking at indicative savings that may need to be made in the next financial year. But I, as your Cabinet Member for Education, and this independent Cabinet, haven't agreed to that at the moment, you know, I can't make a decision at the moment, but it's something that we need to look at, something that I need to look at my Chief Education Officer, and something I need to discuss first and foremost with the Schools Budget Forum, because it was just came out as an agenda item and nothing that I've agreed.
Other councils like Flintshire agreed a 5% council tax, but also had an additional 1.7% added on to protect education because they see it as important. Had you considered something like that?
Of course, without doubt, the consultation shows that, you know, our public want education first and foremost. It's vitally important. But don't forget, just, you know, I'm not just your Cabinet Member for Education, I'm Deputy Leader of this Council as well. I sit as part of this Cabinet and this administration, so I have to consider all aspects of this Council, all departments within this Council. But of course, first and foremost, as my portfolio, it is education. I'm passionate about it. It's been considered in the Council tax, which I think is the next report coming up. So, you know, you'll see where we've considered it in there, and you can ask me questions in relation to that then as well, if appropriate.
Just got one final question. It goes on to Clive's question about bank charges. In terms of the tendering process, is procurement involved in that?
It is, yes, yes. It's every step of the way.
Any further questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank the leader for endorsing the waste management strategy introduced by the previous Labour administration. Some of the independent candidates of the time promised to return to weekly refuse collections and or 240-litre waste bins. This would be disastrous for our recycling and landfill figures. Does the leader accept that this is not realistic? But I do have a couple of follow-ups. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. We have been educated considerably on waste management, and if that was put down as somebody's aim, sadly they were ill-informed. Our view is quite the contrary now, and we fully support what's happening. Just because you come from somewhere else doesn't mean it's bad. Okay, so we're going well, and we're carrying that baton forward with the waste management.
And I'm delighted to hear it. I do have one question, and I assume it's Councillor Andrew Barry. How much has been taken from the various reserves within the authority for the budget?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. The reserves, we make the distinction first of all between the general reserve, which stands at 4.6 million, and is 3.9% of our budget requirement, which is well within the recommendation of between 3.5 and 4%. We're currently using 69,000 from reserves, and overall in the 18-19 budget we'll be using 1.469 million from the budget reserve as opposed to the general reserve. The current year, as per last Labour administration, used 2 million and supported the deficit to the tune of 757,000. So I think you can see by those figures that what we're using is very prudent at the moment. I don't know if that answers your question, Councillor Jones.
No, I was looking for further answers. Is like 275,000 from the living wage reserves and various other pots that are available?
If I could respond with that one, is that was monies that was set aside a number of years ago when we had a revenue out and surplus at the end of the financial year. And so monies were set aside then and to assist us in the future with those costs which were just coming along. So for next year we have got a living wage reserve amount of £275,000, and we're also using monies from the Corporate Investment Fund of £184,000, which again has been approved by Council in the past, and that is to finance 2 further social care workers, and that was approved a number of years ago.
I have another question. It's regarding quotes that are within the report. On page 105, and I've asked various councillors, and none of us can ever recall this being in this statement. It is acknowledged that the continuous use of balances to avoid difficult budget decisions is both unwise and unsustainable. Why does that appear in this report? And like I said, I've asked various other councillors, and none of us have ever seen this before.
It's actually in every single report that we've come to Council over the last number of years, and what it basically refers to is that we don't use any of our Council Fund reserves. That currently stands at £4.627 million, and which is 3.9% of our net revenue expenditure. What we are using at this present time is our earmarked reserves, which have been allocated over a number of years, and that's to assist us with our budget setting, and that has actually resulted from the fact that we had a revenue outward surplus a number of years ago. So we put monies aside, and that is then to assist us in going forward.
Thank you for that, Steve. And the other quote then is off page 153, again, which I have never seen, and you're probably going to tell me I've missed it. The borrowing of monies purely to invest or on lend and make a return is unlawful, and the authority will not engage in such activity. Again, I've never seen this, and neither has any other council I've spoken to recall it.
It has been included in the past reports, and what we're actually saying is that we can only really borrow and to support our capital expenditure. We can't borrow and just then to actually lend on. So we do that and to support our capital expenditure. But that has been included over the last number of years as part of the statement.
Yeah, thank you for that. As I said, I agree with the sentiment in it. I just, for the life of me, I haven't seen it.
Any other further questions? No? Any comments? Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, first of all, can I congratulate the leader of the council on the State of the County Better statement. Things are going swimmingly well, and I'd like to think that perhaps maybe things weren't quite so bleak as they were painted just before May last year. Otherwise, there would be a massive improvement come from somewhere. Mr Mayor, I know you've got an engagement to go to, so I'll be fairly brief, okay? Key point, the Labour Group cannot and will not support the recommendations contained within this report. For many months now, we've been aiming toward a balanced budget based on a funding reduction of 4.5%. As the report tells us, we've actually had a reduction of 0.3%. Far from wonderful, but substantially better than expected. In fact, the second best settlement this authority has received for the last 5 years. It's also proposed to raise council tax by 4.15% rather than the 2.9%, which has been in the MTFP for quite some time. Again, this will result in a far larger sum in the budget than planned for. Yet, I appreciate reserves have been raided before, been raided again, even though we were supposed to have a balanced budget on previous figures. We're far better off still raiding the budget. I dread to think how we're going to make the £6.5 million savings the leader alluded to next year. The reserves are not going to help with that. Mr Mayor, I want to take a quick look at the consultation, something very close to all our hearts, because it was referenced quite often in a meeting only a month ago when we were discussing the site of the new school. And a lot of emphasis was put on consultation and what the people wanted. I think our attitude seemed to have changed very quickly in a few weeks. This particular consultation on the budget provided the outcome that 71% of respondents were only willing for a council tax increase of between 0 and 2%. That's 71% of the people. Yet the proposal is 4.1%. I'll just remind Council of some of the statements made in that meeting of only a few weeks ago. Independence, listen to the people. Why go through such a lengthy process if we're not going to listen to the wishes of the people? Was the consultation a meaningless exercise, or are we going to listen to the views of the people? The majority have spoken loud and clear, as we have in this consultation. And another prominent member of this council said it's about listening to the people having a say. It's about listening to communities. We listen to people, and we were challenged, stand up and be counted and do what the people want. Well, Mr Mayor, we're not doing that if we pass the recommendations in this report. So, the problem we've got, Mr Mayor, and we're realistic about it, the budget must be set by March the 11th. And if this group was to attempt, or the sisters or others, to vote this budget down, we would achieve nothing other than embarrass this local authority, and I never say her for that. So tempting though that is, and I'll be honest, we had a lengthy discussion in Labour Group last night, and quite a number wanted to do that. We have decided we are not going to block the budget. We will allow the administration to set their budget and to set their council tax. And much as it goes against the grain, and it'll be the second time we've done it, we will abstain. There's no way we are going to support the budget, but we will not embarrass this local authority. We leave that to others if they wish to do it. Mr Mayor, we will, however, serve due notice that next year, if a budget comes up, and we're only within 2 or 3 days of setting the budget, or the deadline, and it's not satisfactory, we will vote against it. We're given due warning, we're given the only chance we are given, but we need to have this meeting before, because if people are not happy with the budget, we do need to have the opportunity to resolve it. So, Mr Mayor, the Labour Group will abstain on this vote.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Any further comments? Councillor Minton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to Councillor Barry's last words there, just want to take note of what he's just said, actually, with reference to if this happens next year, we only get 3 days to make a decision. Chris, I think it is what you were referring to, that you're saying that, you know, you and your colleagues will definitely vote against it. But would I be correct in saying, I guess it is just me thinking out loud, that, you know, you and your colleagues have been invited to budget setting forums, you've been invited to various different groups, and we've also discussed this in scrutinies and in prior council meetings when we've been looking through the MTFP as well. So I find that a little bit disturbing, if I'm honest.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I was invited verbally to one budget meeting when the leader quite heatedly invited myself and Councillor Amos to meeting. That's the last we heard of it. We have been to various meetings, yes, and all through those meetings, the proposed council tax increase was 2.9%. We have never discussed 4.15% until tonight. The first we heard of it was when it was discussed in Cabinet a fortnight ago. How on earth could we agree to that when we've never heard of it?
Councillor Amos.
Oh, sorry, Mr Mayor, I thought you hadn't seen me then. I can't believe, really, what I've just heard. The Labour group are going to abstain on what is a really crucial vote. We are setting the budget, and we're setting a rate of council tax the people of this county borough are going to pay. The Labour Party, the Labour group, are effectively saying we don't know or we don't care about what the rate is. I would say to them, either you vote against it and say why, or you vote for it and maybe say why. I don't see, you've done it before, the Labour group have done it before. There's only one thing you get when you sit on the fence, and that's splinters in a rather unfortunate place.
Which part of the Constitution is the point of order referring to, Councillor Parry?
That is a point of order. That is a point of order. You do need to keep to what the motion is before the council.
Fine. All I will say then is I consider that I agree with Councillor Barry. Shall I say that then? That we have had insufficient time. This is the first time I've seen 4.15. Well, no, not strictly true, because I had an email from the leader about it, but some time ago. And asking me to discuss it with him. So I will speak to the motion, and I will say Councillor Rogers and myself aren't afraid to take a decision, and we will be voting against the motion, the vote.
Leader.
Yeah, if I could add some clarity. Conversations have been had previously that started at 4.5, and people are aware of our starting point of 4.5. We find ourselves at 4.15. It is no secret to anybody, because conversations have been had on that figure. Why have we adopted that figure? Because we listened to the people. Yes, we consulted the people. We went out and spoke to the people. We went to Marks and Spencer's, Leo's, Tesco's. We saw more people than anybody's ever seen in consultation. And yes, the feedback was that they wanted it under 4%. But we listened, and we moved from 4.5 to 4.15. That was as far as we would go by going into our reserves and getting as close as we could to 4%. Our drive was to support the people, because the people in the community will be hit by this council tax. I am amazed, actually, by the attitude from others. We're dabbling about the figures. We have listened, but we still have to balance the books. This is about business, and we will make it next year. I have no doubt about it. I am confident that we will balance the books next year. The year after is where the threat comes to us, and we will work as hard as we can. I'm confident in the people working here, doing the service, and I'm confident in all of you can do that, because I'm not a defeatist. I'm a positive individual. I'm someone who take on the challenge, and we haven't done this lightly. The work has been done working on this has been months, And yes, some have engaged and some have not engaged. So don't accuse us of not listening. We have listened. I repeat that. We have done what we can. We have moved 4% or 0.4% away from where we were. And that conversation was had with people here. I don't want to throw stones. Don't tell me you don't know, because you do know. Yeah? So don't tell me I didn't say it to you, because I did. And you know I did. So where we've gone, we have listened. We've changed it. We've got as close as we can to 4%. And we balanced the books. And I'm confident we'll do it next year.
And can we take that to the vote then, please, because the leader's just closed down the debate.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, the leader said he's told me things. He's told me something in an off-the-record conversation, which not
Is this about the motion?
All minuted meetings have been on the basis of a 2.5%
It's closed. It's closed. Can we put that to the vote there, please?
The vote, please.
You all had plenty of times to put your hands up, so...
Nobody was indicating to speak at the time that he was called. Can you please move to the vote?
Provided.
Why we can't see whether it's carried? Yeah, yes, so it's carried.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The motion's been carried. Next item on the agenda item number 5, Council Tax Resolution 2018-19, to consider the report of the Chief Executive, which can be found on pages 167 to 172. I understand Councillor Andrew Barry's taking this one.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We as an authority are required to disclose our budget requirement and council tax resolution for 2018-19, as we've just debated at some length with our previous report. A formal declaration is at Appendix 1 and summarised on page 168, paragraph 5.1. Recommendations are, at 2.1, we approve the formal statutory council tax resolution. 2.2, the police precept be noted. 2.3, Bedlinog Community Council precept be noted. 2.4, Welsh Government's domestic rates be noted. I move.
Do we have a seconder?
I second that.
Thank you. Any questions? No? No? No comments? Any comments? No? And we take that to the vote then, please. Thank you, everybody. That motion's been carried. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item number 6. It's a joint working agreement business plan, Cardiff Capital Region City Deal, to consider the report of the Chief Executive. Can be found on pages 173 to 234, and the Chief Executive has taken this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully a non-contentious report here. Given that this document that was agreed back on the principles of the document was agreed and signed by this authority and the 9 other authorities in South East Wales back on the 1st of March last year. A requirement of the document was that we needed to sign off a joint working agreement business plan, and that document is before you this evening for sign off. It has been signed off by the Regional Cabinet. It was signed off back in late February, where all 10 leaders of the South East Wales authorities agreed unanimously to bring this document before each of the respective authorities. You'll see in the documentation the background and the introduction in regards to the requirement of bringing this business plan forward. And you'll see that the proposals which are set out in paragraph 4 to 4.4 lists basically what the document does and how it brings forward those key themes which were agreed actually prior to March last year. So they were in the original bid document. Those are set out in 4.3, and you'll see their skills for the future, the innovation, the Metro Plus, digital, highways investment fund, and strategic sites. And clearly this authority will play a big part in delivering the vast majority of those proposals. If we look at skills for the future, you will see it in the business plan. The aim is to bring forward innovative apprenticeships within the region. And what they're looking at doing there is not recreating apprenticeships in the previous formats, which are currently available, but actually looking at where there are gaps in the market. So we're looking at apprenticeships, looking at key areas where there are gaps in the marketplace, and actually bringing those forward, because clearly there are already schemes in place to deliver others. The innovation portfolio again sets out the principles we're looking forward there for innovation, entrepreneurship, etc. And one of those big projects, which you will be again aware of, was the IQE investment, where Cardiff Capital Region City Deal invested over £37 million in bringing forward that wafer factory down in Newport. We may ask, well, why is it in Newport? Well, it's in Newport because it's on the M4 corridor. However, the jobs it will create will be well-paid jobs, which will be £50,000 plus, and the opportunities again to ensure that our community and people who wish to apply for those jobs will do so accordingly. Metro Plus, we're all mindful about the metro system that's being brought forward by Welsh Government, and again very important to us in Merthyr Tydfil, because Merthyr Tydfil will be a hub. One of the hubs set out, and again the aim is to look at again 4 trains per hour from the railway station in Merthyr Tydfil. They will be looking at another passing loop somewhere along the line, so we can generate those 4 trains per hour. And again, one thing that we as officers have been trying to promote is a fast train link from Merthyr Tydfil to Pontypridd to Cardiff. Because as you know, it's a stopper at the moment. It stops at every station going down the valley. Whether there's anyone waiting there or not, it stops. And we're saying to enable traffic to come off the A470 and to give people the opportunity, a direct link into Cardiff. It really should only stop at Merthyr, Pontypridd and then into Cardiff. So that's being looked at, and you'll also see that there is a commitment to coming forward in regards to an improvement in Cardiff Central Railway Station. Everyone will be made aware of the Cardiff Queen Street improvements that's taking place to allow greater capacity there, but improvements needed to Cardiff Central Railway Station itself. The digital portfolio, again, we're looking at something which I know very little about, dark fibre. I know about the dark arts, but I don't know about dark fibre. But again, looking at 4G and 5G connectivity within the valley communities, which will again benefit our businesses quite substantially. And again, we're looking possibly at a transatlantic link, and I'm told by the professionals, megaseconds or milliseconds will actually make a huge difference to a business within the locality. Housing Investment Fund, again something beneficial to us there. We've currently, the City Deal Cabinet has agreed that there should be an initial kickstart to look at scoping out a Housing Investment Fund. But again, we see this, and the leader will, I'm sure, explain a little later, as a huge benefit to us in the County Borough, because it's looking at those very difficult sites in the Heads of the Valleys area where it needs significant public sector investment to kickstart the development. It's also looking at small sites, and again, many of you will be aware that we've recently canvassed Council's view in regards to small sites in the County Borough, where if we get planning permission, we can actually generate a large site for residential development, and then that in itself will look at indigenous builders within the locality who can't build out the 180, 190 houses, but they could actually build out 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we will also look at plots there as well. So again, another interesting scheme for us. And strategic sites. And again, Alan and the team, Alan and the team and the estates have been working extremely hard at identifying strategic sites throughout the county borough, which we can take forward. So I think there's a lot to be had in regards to, for us in Merthyr Tydfil. You'll see there that the investment fund, even though the city deal was £1.2 billion, £734 million of that is going to the Metro, and then Metro Plus is Metro Plus, which is additional funding, which will come from us and others. But the other fund is £375 million coming from the UK government, and the £120 million coming from the 10 local authorities in South East Wales. The benefit again of the deal was the creation of 25,000 new jobs, with a requirement we also draw in £4 billion worth of private sector funding. And again, a lot of that, as it's been said there, the semiconductor project in Merthyr, in Newport, will look at generating 2,000 jobs and actually £380 million of private sector investment. So an excellent kickstart for us. There is a gateway review process that will take place after 5 years, and obviously we're sort of two and a half years into it. The report is there before you. The strategic business plan is attached. As I said, that's been signed off by the regional cabinet, which is the 10 leaders of each authority. The financial implications are set out there in regards to our contribution to the affordability envelope. That was agreed a long time ago when we actually signed off the document on the 1st of March 2017. And Mr Mayor, I would commend the recommendation to you that we sign the business plan off as attached at Appendix A and approve it for going forward.
Thank you, Gareth. It's on the leader is going to move with this one.
I second it.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Rogers.
That's a good report, well delivered, Gareth. I enjoyed that, because if we only get a part of it, we're going to do all right. And what I like about it is the strength together. I say class all the valleys, we're all together, and also with that strength, we've got opportunity to go to the Welsh Assembly. That's where you're going to be together. You've got to stick together. So it's a good report. I endorse it fully, and I hope, as I say, if some of it is successful, we'll be doing all right as a local authority. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Mr Mayor, can I just, obviously I'd like to thank Councillor Rogers for that. This is the first of, we hope, many deals. So, you know, clearly if this stimulates that inward investment, it stimulates the jobs market, it stimulates apprenticeships, it stimulates what we actually need to do, and we can get, and I think we can play a big part in it, and I know the leader certainly does, and I know that the former administration did, because there was unanimous support for this previously in bringing it forward. You know, we're on the cusp here, and again, I think this could be the first part, and there will be more, I'm sure, if we can deliver this, there will be more in train. And as you know, this is the first city deal in Wales signed off. Swansea and the north are nowhere near us, and we are motoring now. So I thank for the comments, Councillor Rogers.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Copper.
Yeah, I got one question, maybe two, depending on the answer. With regards to the city deal, and it's a good report, Gareth. Very good report. It's pleasing that it's taken forward from the Labour group last time as well. How many meetings have been held during the last year since the independent group have been in control of the council of the city deal?
I can't answer that. I'd have to find out for you, Brent. But the issue is, because the formal cabinet was formed back in March 17, meetings have taken place. They're all in the public domain. They're all available on this council's website. They're all available, and those meetings are taking place fairly regularly. they're normally scheduled for a monthly meeting, but as and when things come forward which need urgency, this matter needed a lot of urgency because the document itself needed to be tweaked in regards to what it was going to deliver. As we said, you know, this is an exemplar. We've got 10 authorities working together, but clearly Cardiff's demands compared to ours, whilst they're the same, but they wanted a little bit more, and in some respects that's why the Metro Plus project's in there for Cardiff Capital, for Cardiff Central Railway Station. But those meetings have taken place and they're publicly available, Brent.
Do you have any other questions? No? Councillor Skinner.
Yeah, just in response to Councillor Carter's question, I actually just out of interest met with the relevant departments when I was first elected to find out more about the city deal, and I've actually had conversations with Gareth, so I think it's of great interest to all of us, not just Labour. It was just for a bit of clarity, really, Gareth. You mentioned about the 4 trains per hour. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about that, because when we spoke a while back, I know that my understanding was the high speed link that we're hoping for from here to Cardiff is not necessarily linked to the metro. Is that right?
The issue is it's currently being looked at for Transport for Wales, because the Wales and Border Service, and as currently Aviva runs it on behalf, is coming to an end. So therefore they're looking at alternatives. They're currently dealt with by heavy rail. We've currently got heavy rail trains, diesel trains up and down the valleys. What the bidders have been asked to look at is whether they could run trams on the tracks, whether they can run light rail on the track. The Future Generations Commissioners asked whether they could look at alternative fuel trains, so electric trains, etc. And my understanding is, and I'm no professional here, is that if you can put trams on it and light rail, you can run things a lot quicker, whereas diesel, it takes a little bit longer. There's also a commitment, as I said, to look at more than the one passing loop. There's currently a passing loop in Merthyr, I think it is, and they're looking at upgrading that to 2 passing loops so we can get the 4 trains an hour, because currently as one train comes up, it's in the passing loop and it's up. So they're looking at where they strategically place those passing loops for us in Merthyr Tydfil, and then obviously once it gets to Abercynon, then it's on a on a different route down to Pontypridd. So that's what they're looking at. What we will get, we will find out, I think, within the next couple of months, because Transport for Wales, I think, have got the number of bidders down for the franchise down to 2, and they will be awarding that tender shortly. And I'm sure that once the tender gets awarded, they will want discussions with us as a council, because they will be looking at, if we bring in trams, we need to make sure that rail transport or tram transport is affordable for our citizens. So, it's quite costly at the moment to go down on the train and to get a job in Cardiff and to come back up. They'll be looking at frequency, because obviously last bus in Merthyr is 6 o'clock. So they'll be looking at the whole dynamics around integrated transport. So if we can get people down there, we need to get them back home, and we need to get them back to where they live. So it's a moving feast, and obviously once Welsh Government allocate the budget for this, then we'll know what sort of fleet of vehicles they'll be running on our network to Merthyr Tydfil.
When I met with the department who know more about it, they explained that we weren't, and I think you've clarified that, in as much as we're not 100% certain exactly what we'll get for that investment. Obviously it all looks really positive. I suppose my question is, if we've got that hub, which again sounds positive and sounds really good, how can we be reassured that that hub won't just be a building that looks nice and sounds good, but doesn't actually serve a lot of purpose? What reassurances can we get, I suppose?
I'm going to put it in their contract that they want 4 trains an hour to Merthyr. Okay. The issue is Merthyr Tydfil station will still be there. The likelihood is that they will have a park and ride facility at Pentrabark, because Pentrabark they're going to invest quite a lot of money in. And the reason for that is because the highway network from the heads of the valleys down, it comes down the slip road, it comes to Pentrabark, and therefore, it's a nice node to deliver a park and ride facility. Clearly, there's aspirations for the Hoover site as well in regards to the redevelopment of that. And again, as the gateway to the town, if we can get that redevelopment up and running as well with a node of Pentrabark, it'll be very attractive for people to come and live. The other impact that's also happening now throughout the valleys, and I'll just go off a minute, as I always do, but is that because the tolls are now going to be removed from the Severn Bridge, people are buying houses up like mad. You can't buy a house in Chepstow. I was told yesterday from a developer that houses in Chepstow, people are knocking doors where there's signs and offering them between 10 and 20% above what they're actually asking. So, I think there's a catalytic effect for us, really. And if we can ensure that we get the right skills and the delivery of those skills up in Merthyr, we can get the right apprenticeships up here in Merthyr, training people for jobs that are actually there, instead of, with all due respect, sometimes training, people for which there are no jobs. I think the transport link, if we can get those 4 trains per hour, in which they're trying to, as I said, is in the contract, it'll provide benefits to us. But we won't know that formally until they actually award the contract.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned earlier, Gareth, excuse me, that there's a distinct difference between our needs here in Merthyr Tydfil and those in Cardiff. How can we ensure that our voice is heard, essentially, when we're obviously the smallest county borough?
I'm sure you'll know prior to this my question, the answer to the question. When we drafted the agreement in regards to the governance, and you'll be aware that I led on governance for the SETI deal, we had a huge argument at one stage that Cardiff wanted to have sort of 5 votes and we in Merthyr had 1. And the view I took, and it was supported by all authorities, it was 1 council, 1 vote. So we've all got an equal voice. In this instance, size doesn't matter. Okay? So, so the issue is, it's 1 council, 1 vote. We've got an equal voice, the same as everyone else in that city deal. And I can rest assured, having served with 2 leaders on this, they're equally fighting the corner for Merthyr Tydfil.
Gareth, that's good to hear. Given the enormous socio-economic impact that this is going to have on the county borough, further down the line, can somebody from the Cardiff Capital Region Board or whatever come and present to council? Because I think it's vitally important that we kept up to date throughout this process.
There's no objection to that, and I think as things now, if we sign this off and every other authority sign it off, which is essential, once the 10 authorities sign it off, we can start drawing down the real money. We've currently got £30 million in, which has obviously been spent on IQE, but we can look at reinvesting some of that money back into the project. We're looking at redrawing down some of the council money into that project, and I think it's only right and proper that we ask the director of responsible for City Deal and maybe the chair of City Deal to come along and just update council. It's fundamental. We're an equal partner, so therefore we need, you need that information.
Councillor Colburn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Gareth, it all sounds great for the town of Merthyr Tydfil, but I hope we're not forgetting the outlying villages. We've got a lovely rail line in Bedlinog. It'd be lovely if we could have some passenger trains chugging up and down there, linking up, giving us all the same benefits that the rest of the town are going to be getting.
I can reassure you that it's a bit of deja vu, as if Councillor Smart is sitting there. I tell you that. Yeah, what about the other valley? And yeah, we won't forget about you, Malcolm. The issue is, and I think, again, we've got foresight here, is that as part of the Fossa Fran project and the plateau we're developing up there, they've laid a track bed. So the track bed can go from Cumbargide actually up to Dowlas. And, you know, again, we were looking at that for future-proofing, future development in regards to this. I think the issue we got to look at is whether Transport for Wales will look at providing passenger trains up to, you know, the higher parts of the valleys. And again, that's a negotiation we will have to have. But again, looking at the, you know, the foresight of this county borough, you know, we asked for a track bed to be put in and laid to the plateau, and again, that's something we will continue to pursue. But you are not being forgotten about. I'm sure the leader will assure you on that, but you know, from our level, you know, and again, there's significant amount of investment going in as well. So, you know, we need to continue to build on that.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the leader assure us that he's working closely with our neighbouring authorities with regard to cross-border projects?
Yes, I've had this conversation with the union, more likely in the first 2 months. It's an easy one because the cabinet is made up of Blaenau Gwent, Torfaen, Rhondda Cynon Taf. There's a lot of trepidation about Rhondda Cynon Taf, and the Rhondda Cynon Taf are trying to subsume us. I've been really impressed with the leader over there, Andrew Morgan. I've been impressed with other leaders. What Gareth hasn't maybe expanded on for time purposes is the unique position of the cabinet. Gareth just said one vote, and let me tell you, Cardiff want more. They haven't got it. And I will say this, in that sense, we're always looking to work with the other areas. I've been down to Cardiff, I've been over to Torfaen, and we've been to these areas, seeing what they're doing, and we're looking to develop. We're not constrained to just us and Rhondda Cynon Taf. We're working with them, maybe with a tunnel that they were looking to develop, but we go across to Torfaen, Blaenau Gwent and those areas, and open to pull people into our Trago Mills initiative. So, you know, there's plenty of opportunity there, and plenty of good connections. One of the things is that this isn't party political at all. You know, there's no party issues here in relation to any of this work. It's about getting things done, more business, like cheaper and improving the opportunities for jobs for our people. So yes, the answer to the question, Dave, is yes, we are working with them.
Do we have any other questions? No? Any comments? Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just to say that despite a little spat earlier, the leader had been assuring us that the Labour Group is fully on board in this. In fact, the difficult decisions, most of the decision was actually setting up the group in the first place and the investment there. So unless something dramatic occurs, he's got our full support on things.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, in austere times, 8.3 million is a lot of money, but I'm sure members will agree with me that every penny of that 8.3 million is money well spent to drive forward this authority into the city deal.
Any other comments? Councillor Amos.
I'd just like to echo Councillor Barry's comments, that I can assure the leader that he has our utmost support as well. I speak for Tony Rogers and myself. Congratulate the way he's handling it at the moment, and you will continue to have our complete support on it.
Leader.
There's things, a few things I want to add for this one. Councillor Jones asked me a question about recycling, and I'm not going to say that something's been done right before by the other group is wrong. If it's right, it's right. If the process, the work they've done in a particular year, I have to heap praise upon Brendan Toomey and his leadership, vision to see what was coming here. I'm very lucky that I got Gareth down there, because Gareth is one of the most vocal and the most informed leaders on this panel. Let me tell you now, he represents Merthyr Tydfil very strongly down there, let me tell you. And he uses the term a lot, punching above his weight. He's punching well above his weight, let me tell you, because he takes on anybody and everybody to put forward Merthyr's vision. And we have our differences, I'm not just saying it, we fall out, but when he's right, and he's got this one absolutely by the throat, and he's gone there with it. And I do applaud the Labour group for going with it. I think it was a big leap, It's taken me about 8 months to get my head around it, because it's very complicated, the stuff down there. But some great leadership from the previous leader and from Gareth, and long may it continue. There are risks involved, but you've got to be in it to win it, haven't you? And we're in it, right in the middle of it.
Thank you. If we can take that to the vote then, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's been carried. And the next item on the agenda, number 7, the Cwmtaf Wellbeing Plan. To consider the report of the Chief Executive, can be found on pages 235 to 286. And the leader's taking this one.
I'll try to be brief. It is a 50-page report, and this report has appendices provide details on the development of the Cwmtaf Wellbeing Plan, along with the plan itself, which was approved by the Cwmtaf Public Services Board at the meeting in January 2018. As highlighted in the summary to this report, the Wellbeing Plan is also subject to approval through the governance arrangements of the individual statutory partners of the Public Service Board. What I will say, there is crossover here as well with the city deal in relation to the opportunities that come out of it. And a lot of these plans are syncing together. Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council and RCT and Cwmtaf University Health Board, South Wales Fire and Rescue Service and Natural Resources Wales. Further details on the development of the Cwmtaf Wellbeing Plan and the next steps can be found in Appendix 1 to this report, and include the duties under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act 2015, the development of the Cwmtaf Wellbeing Plan, the journey so far, including the development and publication of the Wellbeing Assessment, the engagement and consultation that took place on the draft Wellbeing Objectives, and also the draft Wellbeing Plan. The Cwmtaf Wellbeing Plan itself, including its overarching wellbeing objectives and next steps. This wellbeing plan is the result of 2 years' work, with the involvement of the community being central to it. The Cwmtaf Public Service Board sees this plan as a huge opportunity to strengthen its work as one public service. There is recognition that partners need to work better together and be radical, removing the divisions between services to develop a way of working that makes sense to partners and to the people and communities they serve. The plan sets out on a clear ambition to work as one public service with communities to support the development of resilient communities that are informed, connected, active and resourced, and have the ability to adapt and influence and change and improve well-being. And again, just as a line in this one, I was involved very early on in my previous role, and I know Gareth has been with this one since day one, so has Suzanne here, who does the administrative burden. It's taken a lot of work to pull us together, a lot of pushing and shoving, but I do think it's in a real good place at the moment, because it's syncing with so much other work, the Valleys Task Force and the City Deal. Before I take the recommendation of the report, I would like to welcome Council Angela Jones, Public Health Consultant based in Cwmtaf. Angela was given the lead to develop the Cwmtaf Wellbeing Plan, and Angela can give more details later at questions. So I will take the members through the report, highlighting some of the key points. So all I do now is look to move this report.
I second it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Rogers.
I think if I remember rightly, I was off having a break, and from Seamus, my colleague, my leader, we were off. We were having a little spell. We were. Just to rejig my memory, I think this well-being. Now it's on all the scrutiny reports. It comes through social services, which I sit on, and I'm chairman to Tanya there at the governance. When it was brought in, this is the question. It is actually. I think it was brought by a woman called Mrs. Howe. I think if I'm correctly, she used to be deputy to Alan Michael, police commissioner. Then she was appointed with the Welsh Assembly. So I'm just giving a little brief background on it. But the question is, were any local authorities given extra money to implement half of this? Because it's, it has cost money. So I see Gareth there, you can answer in a minute, Gareth. Were we given any extra money by the Welsh Assembly to implement this? Please.
I think Councillor Rogers hit the nail on the head. See, this is the dark arts in the corner with the spells, so... Councillor Rogers, when this was initially set up as part of the local service board, we had some small grants, I believe, from Welsh Government, Suzanne, didn't we, in regards to some of the administration, etc., etc. Once it morphed into the public service board, my understanding, there wasn't any money coming with this from Welsh Assembly Government. I think the understanding was when they do their equalities impact assessment and how this actually it shouldn't actually cost you any extra more money. The reality is, in regards to some of this, the administration, as is always, falls upon the local authority to deliver the administration. But I've got to say that the partners around the table have actually made some very bold decisions to fund the administration, and we currently got that being set up, or it may well now be set up in regards. In regards to that, but the partners actually agreed to contribute, because otherwise it would have fallen upon the local authorities again. So we've got that mature relationship, and that's, as the leader says, continuing to develop. And again, you know, the work of Angela and the team in bringing this forward, you know, and actually getting to the place where we're at today, you know, is to be commended. And you know, I know Angela's put a lot of time into this herself personally, and again, I would thank her, as the leader's done, for doing that.
Do we have any other questions? No? Any comments? No? Can we put that to the vote then, please? Thank you, everyone. That's carried. Yes. Yeah. My screen's frozen. Next item on the agenda is agenda item number 8. It's council tax discount for long-term unoccupied properties, to consider the report of the Deputy Chief Executive. It can be found on pages 287 to 289. Councillor Andrew Parry's taking this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council tax discounts for long-term and unoccupied properties. This is an annual determination by Council as to the level of discounts applied to vacant properties throughout the county borough. The report also considers the discretionary powers to charge an additional 100% tax on unoccupied properties, both furnished and unfurnished. We do not recommend change at present, the main reasons being highlighted on page 289 at 3.9. Hence, I'll take you to the recommendations 2.1, 2 and 3. 2.1, retention of the current system. 2.2, no discount be defined as Appendix B. 2.3, no premium applied to our long-term unoccupied properties. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second that.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Richards.
Could someone advise us how many of the properties fall within this category, please, within the borough?
Yes, Councillor Judge. We've got at the moment approximately 600 unoccupied properties registered. Around 185 are considered second homes or furnished at the moment, so just under 800.
Any other questions? No? Oh,
Obviously,
Carl.
I think within the report there is an indication that perhaps premiums are going to be looked at in future years. I would also ask perhaps a good look at discounts, because other authorities local to us have moved towards reducing discounts and imposing premiums, and certainly from information I've received from Torvine,
there has been a significant reduction in the number of empty properties. Certainly since I was elected in May, I've had a number of inquiries from people living in the Trearis ward. I think the leader will be aware of that as well, that empty properties do have a detrimental effect within the localities. They can be an eyesore, they can decrease property values for neighbouring properties. Yeah, I'll come back to it.
Do you have any further questions? No? Comments? Councillor Richards.
Obviously, what am I saying? It has been quite an issue within my area since I was elected in May, and I promised my residents that I would raise it as a matter here tonight. Obviously, what I said, it can cause a nuisance, decrease property values within the street, contribute to housing shortages, lead to development where housing is required on green belt areas, but also an increasing demand on various authorities' resources in dealing with those empty properties, whether it be public health, building control, the fire authority, the police. So I'm glad that the Cabinet are going to perhaps have a look at this in the next 12 months. But obviously, with regards to the people who own these properties, they are also losing their right to perhaps a rental income from them, and also increasing their income by selling off those properties. So that was the statement I wanted to make, and I'm pleased to see that the Cabinet will be looking into this over the next 12 months.
Any further comments? Councillor Parry.
I think we all subscribe to what Gareth has said.
Nobody else?
I think we all subscribe to what Gareth said tonight. I'd like to bring Mike in, Mike Parry, who's done considerable work on this area. Oh, right, okay. Well, Mike's done considerable work on this area anyway. And it's what we found in speaking to our counterparts in other county boroughs is administratively it's very difficult for us to enforce this. One of the get-out clauses that are being used is when these properties are put up for sale, they have to be off the market for 70 days, Mike, is it? Just yes or no? Yeah. It needs to be off the market for several days. And for us to travel the county borough to find out what properties are for sale, what aren't for sale, how long they've been up, we simply haven't got the capacity to do it at the moment. And it's being in an authority with reducing resources. We will find this, and we simply haven't got the resources to put into it at the moment.
And if we can take that to the vote then, please. Thank you, everyone. That motion's been carried. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, is the Taff and Crescent Street Merthyr acquisition and clearance resolution to make a compulsory purchase order. And this is to consider the report of the Chief Officer of the Neighbourhood Services, be found on pages 295 to 320. Councillor Howard Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report covers Taff and Crescent Street, Merthyr acquisition and clearance resolution to make a compulsory purchase order. The summary report is the Council to seek Council resolution to proceed with a compulsory purchase order at Taff and Crescent Street, Merthyr to enable a demolition and clearance scheme to proceed as a housing not considered safe for long-term habitation. I take the report to point 3.5, which actually explains where we are in this present situation, what houses we have purchased and what are needed. There are financial implications which are covered in 4.1, 4.2. Like the recommendation of 2.1, the Council resolved to proceed with a compulsory purchase order I'll read 2.2 as well. The council continues to pursue the acquisition of the remaining privately owned homes on Tydfil Crescent Street with a view to concluding as many purchases as possible by mutual agreement with the owners ahead of any compulsory purchase order. I shall move, subject to questions.
I second that.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, this falls within my electoral division, and it's been a contentious one over the years. Obviously, a compulsory purchase order is a necessary evil to proceed and continue with the Riverside project. My first question is regarding the financial implications. It says that there are, but there are no figures there. Obviously, I honestly believe that there should be some sort of figure there for us to look at, and if it is a sensitive topic, then possibly there should have been an exempt report. So do we know what the financial implications are, first of all? And my second question is, obviously, if this is approved tonight, what sort of timescales are we looking at? Will a CPO be put against residents tomorrow morning, for instance, or is there going to be due care and time for the residents to find alternative accommodation? Thank you.
It's for the costs. If I could refer you back to the on page 77, which is on the budget report. So that's on page 77, where we just have the schedule of capital schemes. And if you can see on the last block, which is under the miscellaneous schemes, and the first line there is the Riverside Phase 3 Tydfil Crescent Street. And for next year, we have £633,000 in place. And for the following year then, we have 1.037 million. And another £1 million then for the following year. So that's what's been approved.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. That's obviously noted, but it would have been useful if it was in the report for us to see it, rather than referring back to a previous report that we've seen. Thank you.
I don't know whether Councillor Roberts wants a response to his second question, seeing he said thank you very much. No, we're not going to serve a notice tomorrow, Darren. There's a process to be followed now in regards to land referencing. So we have to reference all the land down there which require to exercise a CPO, and so we'll need to notify who's owner-occupier down there, whether there's any odds and lots of little bits of land which we actually require for this project. So it's going to take, I would have thought, maybe a couple of months to do that. Then we have to come back, under the old rules, which I used to work under, there used to be a second resolution, and then we'd be off and running in regards to a compulsory acquisition. The issue is CPO doesn't mean that we can stop negotiating with people. What it means is that we've now always got the backdrop of that to take forward. So, you know, we can negotiate with people currently, but the problem always is you can negotiate for, say, 18 months, and all of a sudden they say, no, we're not going to sell you it now. When we make the CPO and go through that process, then at least the process is there. You know, the likelihood is we will get a confirmed CPO, because obviously all the other properties in the blocks have been purchased by us. It can't be a very nice environment to live in at the current moment in time, and clearly we need to look after the welfare of these owner occupiers. They will be duly compensated, so they'll be duly compensated in regards to the valuation of their land and their house. They'll also be entitled to home loss payments and disturbance payments, so a lot of that will go forward, so they will be compensated. So we will run both consecutively.
Thank you, Gareth. Yeah, obviously since being elected first in 2012, it was one of the priorities within the ward, and I've been liaising closely with various officers on this, so thank you for confirming that.
Councillor Jones.
Gareth Chapman has answered indeed.
Councillor Amos.
Gareth Chapman has answered the questions that I was going to ask.
Are there any questions that Gareth hasn't answered?
You can See, I'm of the dark arts as well.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll move on to comments. MD, got any comments? No? And can we put that to the vote then, please? Thank you. That motion's been carried. Next item on the agenda item number 10, fixed penalty notices for the unauthorised deposit of waste. This is to consider the report of the Chief Officer of Neighbourhood Services. That can be found on pages 321 through to 324. Councillor Howard Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report covers the fixed penalty notices for unauthorised deposit of waste. Summary report 1.1 to advise the Council of the introduction of a new fixed penalty notice to deal with small-scale fly tipping under the unauthorised deposit Wales fixed penalty Wales regulations 2017, referred to in the report as the regulations. 1.2 to seek a council decision to set a level of fixed penalty to a maximum of £400 with no discount for early repayment. In the report, you'll see that there's no financial implications. So I'll go into recommendations 2.1. The serving of the fixed penalty notices for small-scale fly tipping be approved. The fly tipping fixed penalty notices set at a maximum level of £400 with no discount for early repayment be approved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I move the report.
I second that.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Jones.
I agree with the recommendations, Mr Mayor. I just wonder whether we'll have a further report at some stage, whether that goes to council or scrutiny or whatever, indicating how successful this is going to be.
Yes, Councillor, I can't see no reason why we can't. It should be done. Yeah.
Councillor Rogers.
The important thing about penalty notice is it is a deterrent. Now, if you don't put penalty notice up, people don't take any notice and it doesn't work. Now, under my time as a cabinet member, probably for 8 years, this was partly with me, and I've told some people before. We've done it, and it seems to have dropped off, in my opinion. I don't know why, I couldn't tell you why, but we got enough people, we got staff working with the local authority, they can see things, people can see things. First thing I do is anything is look for a letter, look for something, look for evidence. In fact, I was threatened once I was waiting for it, but he backed down. And he gave me 20 years. So, pardon? Is this the question? Yeah, I want to ask a question. The question is, let me come to it. Thank you very much. Let me come to it is, we seem to have fallen off on penalty notices over the last couple of years. Now, is there a reason for it? I don't know. Because they used to be regular, and you give a statement in the newspaper, and it does have the deterrent. So if we don't get penalty notices, we're going to find it very, very difficult to fight and contain these dumpers.
I think the answer is, Councillor Rogers, certainly fixed penalties have dropped off, but we've, when we, under the previous administration, set up a hit squad, I use that term not very lightly, an enforcement team, I should say, in regards to looking at fly tipping and littering, then you know, the number of prosecutions have actually gone up, and I'm sure the officers down the front will tell you there that we're one of the 3 highest in Wales in regards to prosecutions for fly tipping. Clearly, if this is agreed tonight, this will be another piece of information in our armoury to deter these individuals. And again, I know that the teams are working extremely hard to address that. The unfortunate thing is, it's not instantaneous. It takes a lot of time to gather the evidence. It takes a lot of time to gather statements, etc. But hopefully, Councillor Rogers, that we will be on speed. And I pick up Howard's point, that we can report back regularly to either scrutiny or this council in regards to where we're at in regards to these matters.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The previous way of dealing with littering was very onerous for the department. What type of evidence is acceptable for the issue of a fixed penalty notice now?
So it'd be very much similar to what we collect, what we take forward for prosecutions, was sort of letters, not handwritten letters and not junk mail. They wouldn't stand up in court, but it'll be letters addressed to the person still living at the property, and then the process very much follows that we'll serve a fixed penalty notice. They'll get 14 days to pay, as outlined in the in law. But we do need to point out that if those fixed penalty notes is not paid, then the standard prosecution process is followed then. But the aim of this is to reduce the amount of, obviously, small-scale fly tipping we're dealing with taken through the prosecution stage at the moment. So it's very much the same as, it has to be the same standard of evidence that we would take to court for a prosecution.
Thank you for that, and I'm well aware of the process, very onerous process that was in place otherwise. So this is taking the onus away from the enforcement team to prove guilt, other than actually acquiring the evidence, and then putting it back over to the alleged offender to prove non-guilt. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
I wish you all the best with that, and it's a very useful tool for your department, and keep up the good work.
Do you have any other questions? Councillor Skinner.
I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, actually. Hang on, I'm just trying to make my mind up. I suppose it would be a question. We mentioned about monitoring and possibly through scrutiny. Could I just request that I think the cost of prosecution is a valid one. Could we monitor the cost of prosecution against the cost of reduced fly tipping, just to determine if it's which one? So, for example, what I'm getting at, I suppose, is we could end up paying more in trying to prosecute people and chasing the money than we are in actually reducing fly tipping. When it could end up being a non-cost-effective solution. So it's just about, the question is, can we include that as part of the monitoring, please?
I'm sure we could. The issue you've always got, though, is that if they don't pay their fixed penalty notice, then we have to go through a prosecution process. The difficulty we've always got is once we get into a court scenario, the award of a sanction is a matter for the courts. So, we've seen it time and time again. You see it time and time again in the press in regards to police prosecutions. There's a tremendous amount of effort gone in to bring in something to a positive prosecution, and then all of a sudden the magistrates fine them £10 and a couple of £100 costs. The issue we need to look at is, provided we can get our costs back, which are reasonable, the fine is still a deterrent. And what we need to do, again, another thing is, I would suggest, is that in the court users group, we need to enforce upon the magistrates how important fly tipping is in damaging the environment. Because with all due respect to some of our magistrates, they can deal with a drunk and disorderly or a disqualified driver or a TV licence. When it comes to environmental prosecutions, they don't necessarily understand the impact on the environment. So I think there's an exercise for us to do to say, look, we're now going to launch off into this new piece of legislation, and when it comes before the bench, can you be mindful of the seriousness in regards to blight in the landscape? But I pick up your point, is I think we can do that cost-benefit analysis, and clearly, when we come back to council, hopefully it'll have the desired result, because ultimately it'll ratchet up the fines and such like.
If there's a successful prosecution, Gareth, we always get our costs back.
Again, is at the discretion of the court. No, but the issue you've got is it's usual that, you know, as long as the costs are reasonable in the circumstances, we get the cost back. We get a victim surcharge as well on occasion, don't we? Yeah, but that's the issue. So, you know, but the thing we need to remember is that we've got lawyers within the authority who are paid, you know, to do their job, 37 hours a week. And the reality is the more we can get into court and raise that profile, you know, the benefit could be far outweighed by the reduction in fly tipping rather than the cost sanction that made against them. So we've got to do that exercise. But clearly it'll come back before scrutiny, because I'm sure someone will want to look at it within 12 months. And I think we've got to give it 12 months to look at where we're going. You know, and again, I'm sure the officers can look at the cost, the time they spend on a case.
Sorry, do you mind if I just add to Gareth's comment? Just an evidence-based comment, really. If we look at the cases that we've taken to court to date, we've actually, majority of the cases, I think it was bar one, we've retained the costs that we've asked for. So our solicitors are very good at asking for the costs that we put into the cases.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Is it correct that the other benefit, if that's the right word, to an offender is that if they pay the FPN, that they do not get a criminal record for the first offence, which makes them more inclined to pay the financial penalty?
Yeah, that's right. They get the opportunity to discharge liability by way of paying the fixed penalty notice. So if they pay the fixed penalty notice and it doesn't go to court, then obviously they don't get a criminal record, then they discharge liability, but it is only for first-time small-scale offenders.
Any further questions? Councillor Amott?
Mr Mayor, it's just a quick question, really. I didn't catch that young lady's name, I'm sorry, but it was the answer she gave to Councillor Jones. Did I hear right that she said it was up to the offender to prove innocence and not us to prove guilt? I might have misheard what she said, because I thought it was a presumption of innocence, but I might have misheard what she said.
I think what Gemma was explaining was that in the context of the evidence that you can gather, if you issue a fixed penalty notice, it does sort of transfer the onus, but in a court setting, no, it's never that way round. You are always innocent until proven guilty.
Any further questions? No. Any comments? Councillor Skinner.
It was just to sort of say, really, that obviously I think it's one thing every person in the chamber agrees on, how appalling the act of fly tipping is and what it's doing to our environment. But I just wonder, you know, whether we should start to explore education in terms of, you know, speaking to the next generation through schools, particularly, and not just saying the fly tipping is bad, because they hear that time and time again, but correlating it to the actual consequences. So if it costs us 50 million a year, what is that costing us? So for children, making that really, really clear. So 50 million could mean the difference between them getting services when they become parents, for example, and really sort of driving home the real life consequences for them. So I just wonder, you know, if there's any opportunities for us to do that in the future in terms of getting in the schools and educating, then I think we need to be doing that.
Any further comments?
Councillor
Jones.
Just following that point, I think we need to educate the parents as well as, you know, highlighting this with the children. From what I see of it and the problems that we all deal with, it's mainly the big problems there are with mature adults.
Any other comments? Leader?
Just very quickly, first of all, I know that they've been a bit on their own here, Gemma and Paul, in this one, and myself and Howard have been deeply involved. First of all, we would like to recognise all the hard work they've done to date, and I know they've been waiting for this day, because this gives them the tools to move forward. We've got every confidence in them both that they'll do a great job with it, and I know that others now are getting involved. Schools, the police often give those lectures about the bigger picture, but Paul Lewis as well in trading standards now, and the CSB team are all pulling behind them now. So they've ploughed up furrow alone. We've seen it from the input we've had with them. We've got every faith in them of delivering a good job here, and we're delighted that they've got this tool that they've waited for so long to make it a little bit easier for them.
Okay, and can we take that to the vote then, please? Thank you. That vote's been carried. Next item on the agenda, agenda item number 11, is the repayable funding award from Welsh Government to deliver private sector housing loan products. This is to consider the report of the Chief Officer of the Community Regeneration. It can be found on pages 325 to 328. Councillor Geraint-Thomas.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The summary of the report is set out between 1.1 and 1.3, and it's asking for Council to consider whether to accept a new Welsh Government offer which outlines the new terms and conditions associated with capital grant and repayable funding already held by the Council and the previous offer documents, for the purpose of providing interest-free loans to people to refurbish or repair their dwellings. The new offer seeks to consolidate the two funding streams received previously and the revised single set of terms and conditions. One of the additional terms is that the Council must offer an additional loan product, namely a lifeline loans product or property appreciation loan product. This report sets out the implications of accepting or rejecting this offer. I go to the recommendations in 2.1 that the Welsh Government offer and terms and conditions of the loan fund, total value £717,520.35, be accepted. The resource required to administer the three loan products shall be explored with the Chief Officer for Community Regeneration. I so move.
I second that.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, under 6.1, under the heading Financial Implications, and I quote, the Chief Officer is to re-examine the opportunity for the loan products to be delivered by an existing member of staff within the organisation. It's obviously not clear at the moment as to what exactly the costs would be, and particularly who the staff member is going to be. The wording is existing member staff within the organisation. Can I ask Julian Pike, have you got any ideas, or as the Chief Officer got any ideas who this member of staff is likely to be, and will that have an effect on their current duties, and therefore will their duties be transferred, some of it, to another member staff?
Obviously, I can't comment on the thoughts of the Chief Officer. As far as I'm aware, and the stuff that I've been involved in, we've explored current resource within my service area, within Environment Health service area, and it's not there in terms of taking on this additional capacity. And as I understand it, Alan Owen, the Chief Officer, is now going to explore within the regeneration team. And I understand there's some other loan funding which Alan is in the process of administering, which he may be able to tie the two together. But again, I suppose that's a matter for Alan. But in terms of the resource, no, it hasn't been identified as yet who's going to deliver the funds.
So, Mr Mayor, will as a council, will we be advised who and whom is going to be dealing with this in the future at some time?
Necessarily. The issue is that obviously the Chief Officer's got a delegated power to move his staff around in regards to delivering some of these projects, as we've done in previous roles within this authority, as long as it's within existing budget and there's no impact on service delivery, then it's a matter for the Chief Officer. Clearly, we're mindful, Clive, that what we don't want to do is impose additional burden upon existing members of staff. The unfortunate thing is, given that we're shrinking and continue to shrink, and we've got to shrink by another £6.6 million, 1920, we'll be looking very hard through the staffing structures now as to whether we can, stop doing some things, put things into other places, and morph in. The only requirement to come to council is where there's a major review of a directorate or a department, but where we're just moving staff around to deal with, where needs must. And as Julian said, Alan's looking very clearly about some of that. Currently, there are other loans likely to come forward in regards to other projects which Cabinet addressed earlier this afternoon. So we'll be moving people around, but I can reassure you that it's not the intention that we overburden staff of this authority with, you know, they're doing 3 or 4 jobs at the moment. We don't want to do 6 or 7 either. So, you know, but we need to be prudent with our resources.
Any other questions? No? Any comments? No? And can we put that to the vote then, please? Thank you. That motion is carried. And moving on to the next item on the agenda is number 12, public consultation on draft air quality management area action plan. This is considered report of the Chief Officer of Community Regeneration. Can be found on pages 329 to 334. And Councillor Geraint Thomas again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is quite a serious issue for the county borough. We don't want our citizens to be poisoned by toxic gases from vehicles. So the summary of the report sets out between 1.1 and 1.7. The Environment Act 1995 introduced a system of local air quality management for the UK to ensure pollutant concentrations are within national air quality standards, designed to protect public health and the environment. The local authority, through the Environmental Health Department, carries out routine air quality monitoring to determine whether air quality standards which are prescribed in law are being breached. This includes monitoring short-term, monthly and annual nitrogen dioxide concentrations. Meteorological data and traffic data are also taken into account when analysing the levels of nitrogen dioxide. As a result of the monitoring undertaken within the county borough, elevated levels of nitrogen dioxide have been detected on Tydfil Road. National air quality standards for the annual mean nitrogen dioxide concentration of 40 grams per meters cubed have been exceeded. Where elevated levels of pollutants have been identified, a detailed assessment is required to be undertaken. A detailed assessment relating to the levels of nitrogen dioxide on Tydfil Road has been made and published. The assessment concluded that it was necessary to declare an air quality management area in accordance with our duty under Section 83(1) of the Environmental Act 1995, which requires the local authority to designate those areas where the air quality objectives are not being met and where people are likely to be regularly present. The UKMA was subject to a previous council report and was declared on 31st of January 2017. Following the declaration, the local authority is required to produce an action plan detailing the measures that will be undertaken to reduce the level of nitrogen dioxide to an acceptable level. The plan must be completed and submitted to Welsh Government within 18 months of the declaration of the AQMA. A draft action plan has been produced. It considers in detail a number of engineering traffic management changes. From these possible changes, viable options for resolving the air quality problem have been identified. And the next stage is to consult with stakeholders to obtain their views on these solutions. A period of 12 weeks consultation to commence immediately is proposed, and the recommendations is in 2.1, a 12-week period of public consultation be agreed on the draft action plan, in particular to seek views on the engineering traffic management changes, which are potential solutions to bringing about a reduction in the levels of nitrogen dioxide to an acceptable level. I so move.
I second that.
Just before we go into any questions, I'd just like to inform everybody that the car park is being left open until we finish, so don't panic about getting your cars out. But hopefully we'll be out through then. So, any questions? Any comments? Councillor Barry.
Just like to say, Mr Mayor, I look forward to the results of the consultation. We'll probably have another interesting discussion afterwards.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whatever form this scheme takes, we'll have to take into account the unintended consequences, which will likely affect the majority of the ward. Traffic flows up and down Tydfil, whatever may come, may very well affect residents in the Mardy and or the Penyard area. So careful examination of the proposal and impacts is essential for this.
Any other comments? No. The leader, please.
Not to delay matters, and I'm got to pay reference to Sue and her team in relation to the work they've done, Llewellyn in relation to the analysis, and I'm sure the other ward councillors would benefit from sight of that when it's all put together, because there's some real detailed stuff based on where the pollution is, what streets it is, and a number of scenarios are played in about diverting traffic here, diverting traffic there. You think you know what's going on there, you don't until you see it. It's a real detailed piece of work. I commend Sue and her team for putting that piece of work together. I've been fortunate to have a briefing on it, and I'm sure that's something we should share to the other ward councillors when appropriate. I don't know if Sue wants to add anything to that.
Thank you for that. It has been a very difficult piece of work to pull together, and it's taken a couple of years to get where we are now to this consultation stage. So hopefully it will go well from here on in.
Okay, no further comments. We'll take that to the vote then, please. Thank you, everybody. That motion is carried. Next two items you'll see on the agenda are for information reports only. Agenda item number 13 is development of the Merthyr Local Commissioning Plan for Sporting People 2018-19, and that's to receive the report of the Chief Officer of Social Services. That can be found on pages 335 through to 338. And agenda item number 14 is information as well, Foster Fran Intermediate Fund. See the report of the Chief Officer of the Community Regeneration 339 to 342. Agenda item number 15, to deal with any other urgent business or correspondence. There are none. And agenda item number 16, to receive communications from His Worship the Mayor. Apart from a 400-page document Björk Harris wants me to read out, I think we leave it for another night. There are no communications, so meeting over. Thank you, everybody.